Hello, I think we're live, and we will be live maybe in a second when this catches up. Welcome to Launch Tabletop. More precisely, welcome to Materialise, the Launch Tabletop podcast. Okay, I am hearing myself somewhere. I did it again, everyone. I had a tab open with the video, and I was hearing the video come through on YouTube. Next week I will have this figured out and I will not do the same mistake. Okay. Hi, everyone. So, welcome to Materialise. This is the Launch Tabletop podcast where we talk about turning game ideas into tangible objects. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. I'm your host, Eris, and with me again are Kate and Alannah. And let's get them. Hello, Kate and Alannah.
Hello. Hi, Eris.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
How's your week been, both of you?
Yeah, hectic as always.
Yeah, busy.
Kate's
If I
is
look
full of
concerned,
cats.
it's because there's a cat tap dancing above my head on the bookshelf, and she may just go on top of me at any point.
Oh, there we go. Yep.
Yeah,
We have a third
Yeah.
guest.
All right.
Cat.
Special guest.
And
Hayley.
aside from what? So is that Hayley? Did you say?
That's Hayley.
Aside from
Good
Hayley,
timing.
we are also joined this week by Aaron. Hello, Aaron.
Hello, Aaron.
Hello.
Aaron is a game designer and publisher of tabletop role-playing games, and is obviously joining us today. So, how's things with you, Aaron?
Yeah, pretty good. I'm still slightly recovering from jet lag because I was away in the US last week, but it's still taking time to fully get back into proper sleep. Yeah.
And
Other than that, I'm good.
Whereabouts is here for you?
I'm in Petaling Jaya, PJ, in Malaysia.
Nice.
Mhm.
I don't even know how to say that. That sounds doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I'll talk to you later
Malaysia.
about.
it's like 10 minutes outside of KL. Kuala Lumpur
Okay.
is where most people would know in Malaysia.
Yeah.
Just say PJ. PJ is fine. Everyone says PJ anyways.
So PJ and KL.
Mm.
There you go.
Good one.
All right. So we're gonna go straight into some news. So Alannah, do you have some tabletop news this week that you want to share with us?
Yeah, I do. So it's a couple of weeks old, but it's been making the rounds for a little while now. But I think it's pretty interesting to chat about. Just from the press release, Asmodee announced the acquisition of VR Group, a wholesale distributor of gaming products in Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. This move will expand Asmodee's wholesale distribution reach to Australia, New Zealand, and the UK when the transition is complete. So the reason that I think this is interesting is that there's not a lot of big players in the Australian distribution scene. VR is, and there's also Let's Play Games and a couple of others that have been around for a while. But back in my publishing days with Roll and Make, VR was our Australia New Zealand distribution partner, and we know the owners Mark and Dan quite well. So I know that this is a really big deal for them, and I think it's quite a big deal for Australian distribution to have a juggernaut like Asmodee, come into the scene like this in this fashion. So.
For those who don't know, can you just explain Asmodee and kind of where they?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for those that don't know,
I know.
So Asmodee's big, a very, very big board game company. I think so. They're French, founded in 1995. They have a bunch of titles they publish, and they have made a lot of various acquisitions over the years of different studios. They've gobbled up a lot of stuff, and they've become a juggernaut of the gaming board game industry, tabletop gaming, role-playing games, that kind of stuff. Aaron.
Yeah. Asmodee themselves have been been gobbled up by like another big group as well, right? I don't know if you're aware of
Yeah,
Embracer.
Oh,
I think I
Yeah.
just saw that as well. Yeah, wild.
Yeah. So Embracer Group previously has been known in like the video game space for like buying up studios and publishers left and right. And then they bought Asmodee, so it's like
oh yeah, this earlier
like
this
really
year,
really
yeah,
big. Yeah.
a
Like
3 billion
Embracer,
acquisition.
yeah. Embracer
Yeah.
is a pretty like it's very weirdly kind of like just taking up everything like in all sorts of like media spaces. So that's going to be really interesting to see, right? Like because we know we talk about like Asmodee kind of like taking up a lot of space, but like them
Yeah.
being just another arm of Embracer is pretty interesting to see what Embracer's plans might be. Whether they might start doing more like cross synergizing between all like the other media properties that they now own as well.
Yeah, definitely a big force in the industry. And then to be for Asmodee, and then to be gobbled up by an even bigger force in a related industry is quite interesting. So getting back to VR distribution side of things, like it's unclear exactly what that'll mean for small Aussie publishers. So I sort of look at it through the lens of having been in this a small Aussie publisher space and how that kind of might impact Aussie publishers. I knowing VR fairly well, I doubt it's going to change their day to day, but it's going to basically put Asmodee, like really push Asmodee into distribution channels, and maybe that will allow small Aussie publishers to get some exposure with through Asmodee, but of course that's we'll see how that plays out. There's no idea there. VR's always been really supportive of small publishers, so I think that it could be quite exciting to see how that develops in the industry here in Australia.
Like the news release that I saw said that they weren't changing, like the two directors were still remaining in charge of the operations. So I don't know, obviously I'm making assumptions, but I'm assuming they're not radically changing their whole company structure, with this acquisition.
It doesn't appear that way,
Yeah.
at least in the short term. But it appears that Mark and Dan are sort of continuing their roles in VR, which is really good to see.
But it doesn't.
So yeah,
look
that's.
like... Oh, sorry. No, it doesn't look to me though like it still is. Like I don't see this as a move that Asmodee is now becoming necessarily more accessible for local game designers to try and pitch to or anything. Isn't like we don't actually
not
have
necessarily.
It is very much just a distribution, like logistics, side of things. Yeah.
But it's certainly interesting having someone like VR who is supportive of small indie publishers, having that direct connection with Asmodee, and we never managed to get any of our games picked up by Asmodee, but Asmodee have always been very approachable in terms of speaking to them about opportunities. We've had various meetings with them over the years,
I didn't know.
and they've always been really good to chat to. It's never been a problem talking to them about stuff. So I'm hoping that this kind of synergistic sort of partnership with VR and Asmodee will sort of pay dividends for the Australian publishing scene. But overall exciting for the local community, game design community, and we'll just see how that plays out, I guess.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Alannah, for sharing that, and thank you, Aaron, for giving us some more information about the Embracer stuff, which I don't think any of us had really been aware of, so that was really good. All right, so we are going to move to the next segment of the show, which is... we need a theme tune. The Materialise questionnaire. Okay, Aaron, so we like to ask our guests a few important questions to help us and the audience get to know you better. Cue line for Alannah.
Yeah, be aware. Be aware, Aaron. We will be judging you based on these answers. So
Okay, I will be very aware.
These are very, very important questions. Yeah, choose your answers carefully.
Okay, so the first question is: are you more of a heart, a diamond, a club, or a spade?
Hmm. Uh. Huh. I think I probably would be a club. I see myself as a
Interesting.
jolly round club.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good enough for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the
fair.
shape.
Yep.
I like
Yeah.
the shape.
Yep.
I like the connotations of like being in community with others and beating people up.
Perfect.
Go X. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Question 2 is dinosaur pirates or space zombies?
I think dinosaur pirates.
Ooh.
I might be showing my bias here for my roots coming from Magic the Gathering because Ixalan did have dinosaurs and pirates and probably dinosaur pirates. So I'll pick dinosaur pirates here to eat, right?
Nice. Yeah. Well, that's one way of looking at it, I suppose. Okay, question number 3 is: what is your favorite snack or drink when playing a tabletop game?
I do have an answer for this. It is peanut M&Ms.
Okay.
Okay. Yep. Very, very, very conventional peanut M&Ms. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
said Maltesers, so similar kind of. It's in that the standard snack space.
But they're also, I
Yeah.
think, the other. I don't know what Aaron's reasoning is, but my thinking is that they don't have a coating that you can pass on to,
Yep.
cards
That's
or
fair.
anything. Yeah,
Because they melt in your mouth, not in your hand.
Yeah.
that's true. That's true.
Exactly. And I prefer peanut M&Ms over like regular M&Ms. But like any
What about the
like
crispy ones?
I was
The
just going to
ones
say
with
the crispy are a
bubbles?
good option.
yeah, I like them too, but like I think peanut ones are just easier to get because like the crispy ones, like I guess where I used to live, the IGA next door didn't always have the crispy M&Ms. They usually just had the standard or the peanut ones. And yeah, like the main thing is just like I don't want any like residue to like. I don't actually mind getting stuff on like my things. It's just like people will stop to like be considerate and like have to stop and clean their hands anyways, and like I just rather have something that's easy, like, and even like the gummy candies which I also used to like have like a little bit of an oily residue. So I found probably like M&Ms, like other sorts of sweets that aren't so like sticky or oily, I guess are ideal for me.
Perfect. All right, let's move on. Cards or dice?
Cards, 100%. I love cards so much.
3 for 3.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
We should keep a score of who says what the
We'll get a
what the
running tally.
proportions are.
We'll have to figure out how to have that as an overlay.
Yeah.
All right.
There's so much you can do with cards.
Yeah. Yes. It's so funny. Like I don't know if I said it last week, but I'm probably pro cards as well. But then it's funny because all of you have said cards. I now want to defend dice.
There's nothing wrong with dice.
I know.
It's-
But the question says it's one or the other, and now I want to go for the underdog. All right. So final question: what fictional character would you invite to a game night?
I don't really like think of this sorts of. I don't know if there's like any fictional character that I would like to invite to a game night. I guess
A Gundam, sure.
like none of the Gundam protagonists are cool with games. maybe. I actually think I would just think of like when I think of like board games and fictional characters, I think of Ben Wyatt from Parks and Recreation, who made like his own board game. So it's like, okay, yeah, I'd get him. He'd play. He'd be cool.
Awesome. I've still not seen that episode, but I know of it. But
The
he was also
Tones of
just
Dunshire.
But
Which they did kickstart as well.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's great. But he was also just a really lovely character. Like he's just a nice guy in general, wasn't he? If it's the one I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Just a
So that's really
nerd.
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Have you seen Severance with the same actor?
Yes, it is amazing. One of the best.
Good.
Yeah, Severance
Have you-
and The Bear, I think, are like two of my favorite things
seen
I've
that.
seen this year. Yeah.
I know this is a board game podcast, but we're definitely veering into talking about popular shows or shows we like. But yeah, Severance absolutely moved me as well. Like it was.
Severance
Yeah.
is brilliant. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
It's
You know what it's
yeah.
about? Like what the story is loosely based on? I'm pretty sure I told you, Eris.
Probably I've forgotten then. Sorry.
Scientology.
Oh, okay.
No, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that was not
The
not
break
aware.
room is code for the auditing that gets done.
Ah,
Wow,
cool.
there
No,
you
it's,
go.
Well, it's it's a very enjoyable show. Yeah.
Yeah. And like the production design is like incredible in that
Ooh.
show. And like a very quick weird tangent, like have you been to like a dead mall?
Yes.
You mean like one of the abandoned
sort of.
ones?
Not a fully
I've seen
abandoned
some
one,
of the
but yeah.
videos of people that go to dead malls and like take their
Yeah,
drone around.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe I should change it. It's not a dead mall. It's a dying mall.
Oh, right.
So like technically there are still people in there. There are still tenants. But like everything else was like boarded up. So we went to a mall that for dinner a couple of months ago now. So like the bottom floor there's still a supermarket and like a couple of like restaurants, but everything else inside the mall is like completely white, boarded up and painted white.
Yeah.
So it was really surreal. And like we had just finished Severance. Like we watched it pretty late, right? Like I know it came out in like March or something, so we only watched it in like July, I think. And like it was so surreal to see like everything completely boarded up, painted white. And then we wanted to go use the toilet, right? And like the corridors in there, like to get to the toilets are like all long, like very, very long, and like all boarded up white as well. And like the place that we went to had like I think it was meant to be like a daycare or something, but like they called it like the pusat perkembangan minda, or like a place to expand your mind. It's like, ooh, okay, that's like a and like you go down the corridor and like, there's the sign outside that said that, and then you go down the corridor and then there's a big fire door before you get to like, usually like there's a glass door behind it, right? So it's very strange because you don't usually get that combo of like big fire door and then glass door, because usually you would even have like shutters or something, right? So it looked very strange. So it's like, yeah, super Severance vibes.
Yeah, very, very much. Yeah.
Has any of this to try and tie this slightly back to the point of this podcast? Has any of that sort of experiences affected you with designing stuff? We'll get into the main interview in a second, but like,
inspiration.
Yeah. I mean, the main thing is just like I guess like you kind of like look for these things, and like that I don't know whether I would say like it directly affects like how you design stuff, but like even just the thing about like watching and reading different things, right? I think it's really important for like any game designer to be in the world, to be to take things from not just like secondhand media, but like to go out and like see places, see things, see people, and like learn from that.
Yeah.
So Aaron, did you say that was in America you did that mall?
Oh no, that was here in Malaysia.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because you did mention pre-show that you went to the US recently. And I know there's a lot of dying and dead malls in the US. So,
all right. Before we get into the main interview, because I'm worried we're going to just like flow into that. We've got some structure, goddammit. So we're going to follow our system for a little bit. So right now we are starting a little new segment called Launch Table Tip, where each week one of our team will share a bit of advice. Kate, I think you've got something to share this week.
I do. Let's talk about file optimization. This is something that Alannah actually suggested based on recent experiences that we've had with some artwork that's been uploaded.
Yes.
Yeah. So file optimization is basically where you take your file, which contains all of the bits and pieces in there, and board games, it tends to be, say, like a deck of cards, which is actually the thing that we encountered. It was a deck of cards that had literally over 1 million individual pieces of vector artwork in there.
Yeah, try
I'm not
1.8.
Yeah, I'm not joking when I say it was over 1 million. It was over 1 million pieces. So when you optimize your file, you're looking at ways to simplify the information that's in there to, well, in our case, not crash the server, because it literally crashed the server. It was that much that the server was just so many things.
Yeah, wow.
yeah, it
And
killed the
for-
server well and
It
truly.
never came back. It was spectacular. So what we're looking at for things like that is, if you've got all of that vector artwork, flatten it down, make it into a really high quality JPEG, or I know you like a TIFF, Eris, or if you want to do a
Pro-TIFF.
bitmap, that's fine. Can bitmap do CMYK? I can't remember.
I don't recall.
Yeah.
But
So anyway, ideally it would be something CMYK, but yeah, if you've got those big vector heavy complex backgrounds on something, whether it's a card or a board or a box, whatever, flatten those puppies down, turn it into a single layer of image, and your production people will thank you. It's also a lot.
Obviously, we're talking about this from the perspective of production. So yeah, don't go and flatten your original source files. That is not the advice we are giving you.
Well, I guess that's the bonus tip, though, isn't it? That maybe save a separate output file for files that you're sending to your.
Yeah.
And that's a really good tip. So whenever you get artwork or a file of some sort from somewhere, have a source folder. Doesn't matter what you call it. You could call it originals, or you could call it source. We like to call it source here in our little office. And once something goes in there, you don't mess with it except to make a copy of it that you can then edit. So you've always got that original. Otherwise, your beautiful vectors that you got from wherever that you may have spent lots of money on, they're gone as soon as you flatten them. So save an original copy, make a copy of that, and then edit that one so that you don't lose those lovely things. But yeah, file optimization, it makes your life much simpler. It's much less likely to cause failures of servers that grind to a halt.
Yeah.
It was beautiful artwork too. It's just so complex.
Yeah, so our pre-flight system will choke on two different things most of the time, and that's vector objects and, broadly speaking, non-die-line objects. So anything that's not your spot color die line, fold line, bleed line, and so on. If we have 1.8 million of those, our server will be very, very unhappy. So vector objects are especially problematic as well, because they're computationally very expensive for the system. So we already have a check in there that will essentially hard reject artwork that has more than 10,000 vector objects per page. And then the non-die line objects is where it can get a bit choked up as well. So
we might have to do a separate episode to talk about some of this in a bit more detail, because sounds like there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
All right.
So file optimization is your friend.
Thank you very much, Kate and Alannah. And Kate, that was very helpful, and something that I know can be easy to forget. I know sometimes if I'm working in Illustrator or whatever, I can forget sometimes how complex the objects can be, and so it's a good reminder.
Anecdote time. Alan and I managed to crash Officeworks once. So we took a fairly innocuous seeming file to Officeworks to be printed, and it was a file that was for one of our upcoming games, and we'd been working with the artist to get the files print ready for Officeworks, and we didn't realize that the file hadn't been optimized, and the file size was deceptively small, like it wasn't too bad. We gave it to Officeworks. They're like, yep, no problems, come back in an hour. Well, we came back in an hour and they told us that file, when it went through the various systems to get it ready for their for their printing had inflated that files, in memory to hundreds of gigabytes, and had completely crashed their entire network and taken down all of their printers. So and
That's
it still
amazing.
hadn't printed. So it has real physical outcomes if you are not. Yeah, and Alan in the chat there is reminiscing along with me. It was quite the adventure.
So
Yeah.
Alan also has a question, which is a good one. He says, "What is more problematic, large file size or a large number of objects?" Asking for a friend.
Definite. Oh, that's a really good question. So, I would say a large number of objects is problematic first. Large file size is definitely an issue. Like if the system has to load, a gigabyte page into memory, that's definitely a problem. But from what I've seen through our working with our system, the large number of objects becomes a problem a lot quicker than the file size becomes a problem. Yeah. Good question.
Good question, though. Really good question.
All right. Thank you for that, everyone. So now we're just going to move to a quick word from our sponsor before we go into the main interview. And the sponsor today is us. Oh, how ironic.
Surprise.
So we are from Launch Tabletop, and we have a platform called Launch Lab. And Launch Lab is our small batch print-on-demand service for tabletop games. Whether you want just a 1 or 1,000 games, we have you covered. Select from our library of components to build your next game. We offer high-quality printing and components at a competitive price with fast production time, shipped to almost anywhere in the world. Go to launchtabletop.com. That's launchtabletop.com. And sign up for a free account and start prototyping now. And if you use the coupon code Materialise, Materialise, at the checkout, you'll get a 20% discount off your next order before shipping. So shipping won't be discounted, but your main order will be. So go check us out. Okay, ad over. All right, so we'll move on to the main interview now. So, Aaron, you are obviously with us today, and we all have been friends with you, I think, for quite a while, so we've all known each other for a bit. I wanted you on the show for a number of reasons, but one of the big ones is that you have been exploring and working in the indie role-playing game kind of scene for a while now. You've just done a Kickstarter, which was successful, so congratulations, and I'll just put up a little picture of that.
Thank you.
So that was your Kickstarter, Spectres of... Is it Brocken? Is that how you say it? Or Brocken? Or how do you pronounce it?
Brocken, yeah.
Brocken? Yeah. I got it wrong on one of the... I know when I was typing it up, I left off the C. So do you want to just before we go on to more broad stuff, just tell us a little bit about your game and the most recent game there, and then we can talk more broadly about some other topics?
Yeah, cool. Thank you. So Spectres of Brocken is my latest Kickstarter. It is a storytelling game, like a story game. It's a style of tabletop role-playing game that doesn't necessarily need a GM or like game master, and lets people kind of just play with each other and make up stuff together. And the premise of it is that you play as as young pilots in an academy, getting to know each other, getting to know yourselves, and then you fast forward to years later, and you end up on different sides of a war, in fighting each other in giant robots. It's my kind of love letter to the mecha genre of animation and storytelling. I love Gundam a lot. I think Eris referenced that just now. So this is just something that I really like. And yeah, so that was the Kickstarter. I actually just finished well, not finished, but like I'm in the process of like doing some more playtesting. I just did a playtest this morning before
Oh,
we
wow.
did this as well. So that's been ongoing, and then I'll continue writing and refining the game before getting it to print. So
Yeah, well,
that's been going on.
Wonderful. Congratulations again on obviously the successful Kickstarter, because that's
Yeah,
really good
thanks.
to get that support. And so I know you've also just flown back, you said earlier, from America. What were you over in America for?
I was in San Francisco for Big Bad Con, which is a tabletop games convention. It primarily focuses on tabletop RPGs, but there's also a big board games component as well. So there's a lot of people who are playing board games there as well. There's a really cool like play to win event where you can play board games and kind of like put your name in for a raffle to win the game that you played. And it was really cool because I was brought over actually as part of their POC Scholars program, like a person of color scholars program, which they have. This is their second time running it. So they've been offering scholarships to pay for people from outside of the US or from like marginalized races or genders to like come over to the con to do a lot of like networking, which was really cool of them. So they paid for my flight and they paid for like my half my accommodation, and they did like some programs as well because it is a big thing for the tabletop industry to like go to conventions, especially in the US and in Europe, right? And so that's one of the things that they're trying to do to kind of like help people who traditionally couldn't make their way to these conventions, and like have to navigate currency exchanges and all of that. Like it's a big cost, especially with the US dollar being so strong. It like right when I went, like it was like went up really, really high. So that was really nice, right? Like to have the scholarship option. And in addition to that, like the POC programming was really cool. Like we got to speak to people who are pretty big players in the industry. I think Peter Atkinson was there previously, currently still from Wizards of the Coast. I don't know whether he's still there actually. Like I don't know if you all are familiar with Matthew Mercer, who like runs Critical Role.
I know of Critical Role.
Yeah. Like,
I'm not an RPG person. So,
So he was he was there as well. So like there's you had a chance to like meet them. Like there's an industry kind of meet and greet where like all the POC scholars were invited and given opportunities to meet other people as well. So that was a really cool. It's a really great program, and I'm really thankful that I was able to take part because of that. I saw Alan had a question as well.
Yeah. Alan was just asking, is there any way for people who missed it on the Kickstarter to get in on it?
Yeah. So I will be selling the digital version on my itch.io page. And fingers crossed, once everything is printed, I am getting help with some online distributors to be able to just to ship the game to like the backers. Anyways, the online stores, not really distributors. So Soul Muppet Publishing for the US and and Europe, and Cardboard Monster for Australia. So you'll probably be able to get the physical copies. I'll have to give them extras anyways, just in case any get damaged during the shipping process. So I'll be printing extras, and they will have some to sell on their website once I'm done. So if you wanted physical copies, that's probably where you'll get them. And because of Big Bad Con, I also managed to talk to someone from Indie Press Revolution, which is a kind of like consolidator, I guess. Like they bring a lot of indie games to conventions and stuff to sell. So that will probably be a thing that will happen. We haven't like signed anything or anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So and I haven't finished the game, right? So but like that's the plan. Like eventually I'll probably talk to them and get some physical copies through to them, so you should be able to get them wherever people stock stuff, or like when IPR goes to conventions. They usually do booths at most of the major conventions in the US for like tabletop role-playing conventions. So yeah, that's probably where you can get physical copies, but like online, like digital copies will be on I think IPR actually, and those websites, they have like online capabilities as well. Otherwise I'll have that on my itch page as well.
Awesome. Thank you for answering that
Cool.
for Alan and for everyone else that wants to know. So you ran this Kickstarter, then was it 18 months, 2 years ago, you ran another Kickstarter, your first one, called An Altogether Different River, from memory, is that right?
Yeah, that was my first Kickstarter, which I did as part of the Zine Quest program that Kickstarter does to encourage small tabletop RPGs.
Yep.
Mm.
And so did this come out of, like, where am I going with this? What I'm trying to say in my awkward way is, did this come about partly because of what COVID did in terms of locking down people's ability to get together and stuff? And so was this, was that how some of these opportunities came up, or were they already existing? Like, were these things already around pre-COVID? Like,
Yeah. So I think we kind of like alluded to this early on when I said like it's all related, right? Like with COVID and like me doing tabletop RPG stuff, because I know Eris and Alannah from like board game like design, and like so I wasn't always just a tabletop RPG designer. I still don't really consider myself a tabletop RPG designer. I think of myself as a tabletop game maker, right? Like, just generally. I just haven't been able to get back to board game card games in a while. Primarily because, and like I got into like tabletop RPG publishing, I guess, like self-publishing, because during COVID it was a lot easier to like get that out and like get that out to people, just because like with a lot of tabletop RPGs, you just need a PDF. You don't need I don't need to think about producing a deck of cards or dice. I know we have to talk about dice as well, right? To make sure we don't just focus on cards. I don't need to ship a box out. I don't need to think about like packaging, and like a lot of like so for example, with An Altogether Different River, it's only like 32 pages. And like one of the things that like with this so-called like zine-sized RPGs is that you get to use like the media mail kind of like for the US, like if you're in the US, so that makes your shipping a lot easier and cheaper. And even without that program in the US, like just even international shipping for small format games is cheap. It's not cheap. Nothing is cheap. Like shipping is never cheap, but like it is more manageable than like trying to ship like games. So because of that, I shifted focus from like trying to do like card and board games to doing more tabletop RPGs, because like the format was really helpful. Was quite accessible for me. And because like there's the digital storefronts, like I mentioned, I have a itch.io page. Itch.io is a digital storefront originally for indie video games. And the tabletop RPG community has like taken to it really, really strongly, just because it provides a really open way to just start selling stuff, like like slinging PDFs to people, like PDFs or JPEGs or whatever it is, like this, just to like sell digital content. You don't even have to go through like Drive-Thru RPG is probably the biggest online store for tabletop RPG content. And it's not like it's very hard to get onto Drive-Thru RPG, but like the barrier to get onto Itch is even lower. right?
Mm.
Or to the DM's Guild for if you do like just Dungeons and Dragons stuff, right? So DM's Guild is the other. I guess it's probably the other one. They're owned by the same company. Like Drive Through RPG and DM's Guild are owned by one bookshelf, I believe.
Okay.
So like itch is like has such a low barrier to entry, to be able to like make stuff and put it up on there. So that's why I kind of like pivoted to like do more tabletop RPG stuff. Also production wise, it's easier in the sense that like you were talking about like optimizing all like your PDFs for like productions. Like, oh, I've never done that. Like,
Hey,
you know,
but to defend, not defend, but like to talk about that, because I mean, my background, as you know, is a graphic designer, and I would still say that optimizing for download or like for file size is still a benefit, even if you are only sharing it.
yes.
Yeah, look, so I think there is still a consideration there about what, because I mean, I know I've had PDFs that are really complicated and my computer has like struggled to open because they're so full of content. So
yeah, and there's a lot of other considerations as well, like accessibility in PDFs, like we're making them accessible for screen readers, making sure you have bookmarks on your PDFs, making sure you have proper links and everything in your PDFs. There's a lot of stuff that you can do to make your product, your digital product better. Not to say that I don't think I'm like the best person to I don't think I'm like best practice on all of them, but like I'm learning and trying on a lot of stuff, and it's there's still a lot of stuff to do. I'm not saying it's like easy, but it is approachable.
Yes,
like for a solo designer, for someone who doesn't have a graphic design background as you do, Eris, for someone who doesn't have like a kind of like production background that I think Alannah and Kate, you might have, like for me as like a solo practitioner, it was a lot more approachable to do like a tabletop RPG project than it was to do a card game or a board game. I think those are like card games and board games are approachable too, especially with if you scope small and just make cards, right? For example, but like when you compare it to like, hey, I just need to do 30 pages of a PDF.
Does it also does it also tie into the like playtesting cycle as well? Where is it easier, do you think, to playtest for those RPGs over a card game or a board game? Do you think, or like had you have much experience with both? Or
I did like at the start of like the pandemic, like you'll remember this, Eris, because we playtested a few times as well. So we all kind of jumped onto Tabletop Simulator and Tabletopia, and like got all those set up to like do digital playtesting when we couldn't playtest in person. And I think it's kind of tricky. Like I think both have their challenges in terms of like how to playtest. Like there's different challenges. I wouldn't say that like playtesting a tabletop RPG is easier. They're different. But like definitely in terms of like having the end goal in mind of like being able to upload something on itch really quickly, or I guess nowadays like you could potentially just do a board or card game that is just a tabletop sim mod, right? Could do that. I guess I wasn't that interested in that. Like I still like. I mean, the other thing is just like when I was in the space, like it's just I was excited to design in the space, right? Like it's just about following interest as well. It's like, hey, I've been doing like card games and like thinking about like card game and board games for a while, and it's really fun to like play in a different space. So yeah, I wouldn't say like the play testing was easier, but it was fun. I love playtesting anyways, right? And so I guess I will say this, right? I remember playtesting in person, right? I miss playtesting in person for like card and board games. I miss like the tactility of it. Whereas when I'm talking about from my personal experience playing tabletop RPGs, a lot of my experience was shaped by digital tools and playing online, right? So I used to play like a D&D 4e campaign, right? Like in person, but like I had that's been a while now, and then I started playing a lot of tabletop RPGs online, and so I got very used to playing tabletop RPGs online. And so playtesting them online like felt comfortable compared to like when we were doing like playtesting on Tabletop Simulator or Tabletopia. It's like, oh yeah, I'm still trying to emulate something here, right? So there maybe there was a little bit of like, oh yeah, I get more comfortable playing online because I'm already used to playing online for tabletop RPGs.
Do you think, like, I know this is me coming from a place of ignorance because I don't do RPGs, but in terms of the people willing to play test, is there a broader group of people in that space who aren't also designing their own games who are willing just to play your prototype? Whereas, because I feel like with board games, it's mostly other designers who are, the ones who are willing to hop onto Tabletop Simulator or whatever and help playtest. It's not as many just regular players who will do that. But is it a similar thing with the RPGs, or it's mostly other designers, or is it fairly like, or is it just different? Like,
I think it's kind of similar in the sense that like I ended up play testing with a lot of other fellow designers. It's just like what the best way to get someone to playtest your game is to have to playtest their game too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you just do playtest exchanges. So that just naturally happens. I think that's probably the case in that like it is easier to get other designers to playtest just because they understand the what it's like to try and find like playtesters, right? Yeah. I wouldn't say. It's also the funny thing of like a lot of I don't, anecdotally I feel like a lot of tabletop RPG players are more familiar designing or like more open to designing just because like you tend to like homebrew a lot of stuff when you're like playing like tabletop RPGs. You just make stuff up, right? Like you can just like hack and homebrew and like change things pretty easily compared to like adjusting like a card or a board game. So that's why it's like I think of a lot of tabletop RPG players as not just players. Yeah.
In terms of design consideration between TTRPGs and board games, is there like a really big difference in how you approach designing a TTRPG versus a board game?
I think the basics are the same. Like I kind of like use the same process and the same considerations that I would design a card game or a board game. Like, I think of theme, I think of, what are core mechanics, what are core loops, stuff like that. All of that is kind of like transferable. Weirdly, one of the really tricky things in like designing tabletop RPGs is in the playtesting, where you have to try and figure out whether the problem is with the game or with the session, which is less of a problem with like card and board games, because like, hey, what was the issue with the game mechanics, or is it with how I GM'd the game?
Right. Yeah, with how you set up the encounter or the scenario versus physical constraint through components.
Like because so much of like tabletop RPGs is like you can like there's so much input from players, right? Everyone can like make up stuff during the game, and like how much of the success or problems with the game is because of that input versus like what your framework structure is providing. So trying to parse that has been like the most challenging part of like playtesting tabletop and designing tabletop RPGs, but also very like fulfilling. Like it's fun to do, I think. Like I feel like I think someone had the note of like, hey, you have to be careful when playtesting tabletop RPGs, because like a really good group can make any game work. Right?
Yeah, true.
But I for a while I thought like, oh, that's like a unique thing to tabletop RPGs. Then I think about it and it's like, sometimes when we play card games together, like the game might not be quote unquote like perfectly great, but like the group is good, right? And like it makes the game more fun.
There's an element of the group dynamic that can kind of override poor design decisions or suboptimal design decisions.
And I say like poor and suboptimal in quotes, right? Because like
I don't mean
it's all contextual.
pejoratively.
Just like it's really tricky to talk about stuff like that with depending on like the audience you're talking to, because like there are some people who really think that way, that that like these games that like
there
that
is
you
a good
playtest,
and a bad, and it's hard and fun.
and like it kind of like depends, and like so like sometimes
I'm definitely of the opinion that like I actually don't really believe there is a bad game. I think it is just context dependent. Now that's not to say that there's not games that can't be improved in certain ways, and but every time I'm working with other designers or playtesting or working on my own games, I think the framework that I use is usually kind of around what's the outcome that we're trying to achieve here, and then how's it measuring against that, rather than just is this good or is this bad? Like it's sort of like it's a
very
much more
contextual.
Kind of nebulous, and also like obviously I've found with the games that I've designed, and that I'll have some groups who just loathe the game. Like they'll tell me to my face, this is not a good game. It's not fun. And then I'll have other groups, whether like who are in more of the target market, and they'll be like, oh, we couldn't stop playing. We were like 6 of this in a row. Like we really liked it. And so it's just like you kind of go okay, well, it really does depend on that, getting that audience in mind and finding that audience.
Yeah. That's why, like, being a designer, you simultaneously have to be very humble and also extremely egotistical, in the sense that, like, you know what game that you will want to make eventually. Like, you have to make a decision, not on ego, but like you have to be confident enough in like your own decision to say, like, look, I have to make a decision, so I have to kind of like ignore some of your feedback. Right.
Yeah, it's not so much ego as a sense of self.
Correct. Yeah. I say egotistical to just be the soundbite, right? But like yes, you're right. Like to have that self-confidence and like the sense of like self and like belief in your ability to like make the game that you want to make.
Interesting.
The good bad thing when it comes to games, it's very subjective. It's one person's like, this is terrible, other people are like, no, we love it. And it's just, not every game is for everybody.
Yeah, and like there's also like the dichotomy between like, hey, do you want to make a good game? Do you want to make a good product? That's another thing you have to think about as well, right? Like
but even that spectrum, like I have so many conflicting thoughts about, because like I think obviously they can be the same thing. You can have a good game and a good product, and you can have ones that are better at one or the other side of that kind of line. But I think that comes back to me, that question of like, what's the outcome? Like, am I looking for a game that I can manufacture easily, or that can be local, like as in language versions can be done easily in other countries, and all of those will filter into, okay, well, how am I going to approach that in my design to make that, to enhance those outcomes, those goals, or it could be more, no, I just want to make the thing that connects with me personally, and I'm not really too worried about how other people react to it, in which case it's more like a personal thing. So
that's the beauty of the format of tabletop RPGs compared to card games currently for me that I'm excited about, is that like, hey, if I really wanted to, I can have a version of the game. Like, I'm just going to tweak like 4 paragraphs in this PDF. You can have a completely unique version of the game. It's a terrible product. It's a terrible way to make a product. But like I can make like personalized games for personalized groups. Much easier using the tabletop RPG format and assumptions, right? Compared to like a card game or a board game.
Some would argue that's actually a really great product.
It depends on how you define product.
It might not be clearly defined, but at the same time it is, because it's a custom product. That's a very clear definition. And I think people like what they like. And if you can take something they like, about and change just a couple of little things, and they're mwah, chef's kiss about it, that's a good product.
Yeah.
And certainly, like, if you are doing it for them specifically, they feel special, right? So that's a good thing too. All right, so we'll just do maybe one or two little questions, not little, but questions, and then we'll head to wrapping up because we've been almost an hour. So I know that you have started doing some work at a college. Is that right? Like, is it kind of how do you describe it, or what are you doing there? What's the? Tell me, because I'm a bit hazy on the details here. So
yeah, educational institution, I guess. I am not 100% sure what to call it as well. But like I'm teaching a game design course. I'm basically teaching like intro to game design at a diploma level.
Yep.
So what my job is basically been like running games for my students. So I actually co-lecture with another lecturer, and like they do like the main lecture, and I run the play experience labs, which translates to like I'm just gonna bring a game, teach you how to play it, we'll play it, and then we'll discuss it, right? So it's just like running like a board games club. So that's been fun. But like it's been really interesting as well. We talked about like looking at like different, like, you know, every different group has like their own preferences on like how to play games and stuff. So it's been really interesting to like see how my students approach games, because this is a game design course that is primarily focused on video games, right? So the eventual idea is that they'll become video game designers. But like the basics they start with is like, hey, you should learn about like tabletop games, and like some of the fundamentals of like game design before you get into like, you know, because they're also just now learning to code, right? So like so you might not be able to do that stuff yet. So it's like, okay, here, like learn paper prototyping, learn like basic game design concepts, you know, what is a game loop, that kind of thing. So it's been really fun to see the perspective of people who don't really play board games, who are more interested in video games, and also just like you know, grew up with different touchstones, like just young people generally. Remembering that I'm now like 36, and it's like, okay, yeah, I am old. And also I think you asked me like recently about like how it's been like playing games with like my nephews as well, who are like who range from 4 years old to 14. So it's been really, really interesting to like see, right? Like I think previously, like I think it's made me a better game designer, right? Like just widening my scope of like people that I've met and played with. Obviously last time, like we have played with like younger people, but I never really paid much attention to it. And I know, Eris, you mentioned previously, you know, we've talked like years ago by now about like your experience playing with kids as well, right? Like playing like gateway games with kids.
Because that's the majority of my published games are in that kind of child family friendly. So that's been a lot of my focus.
Yeah, and like learning, like, oh yeah, like when I show my nephews like some of the games that I like, they're like, oh my god, what's this? This is like just not interesting at all. Like, it's like, no, this is a really good game. It's like, nope, this is boring. Who would want to play this? Why is this so boring? Why do you have to take so many actions? Why do you have to remember so many things? No, this is like the worst game of all time. It's like, okay. Yeah, like I like it kind of like ties into like what I was saying earlier when we were talking about severance, right? Like to be a game designer is to be interested in people and things, and like translating like different experiences like into games, and making sure that like people who are playing your games are able to like find like experiences that they resonate with. Like it's useful as a tool. It's useful just as, you know, enriching your life generally. So yeah, like I am really thankful. I don't know if I have like specific things I would say I've learned from like playing games with like my students and playing with kids, but like except to like broaden my horizons of like what games can and should be, and like how we think, what we think of when we think of like people who play games, right? And like why people play games, especially like I've never played with anyone who's like really trolly in games, but because
Really?
I'll
Sorry,
use
but
this as like a
I've
specific example.
Okay, yeah, go, yeah.
Not in the way of like, oh, I'm going to ruin the game for everyone.
Yeah, okay.
Not
Right?
even
No
in
one
a playtesting scenario?
No, but that's different, right? Because like they are specifically that's a space where it's like, oh no, I want you to like ruin the game, right?
Right.
I want you to break the game. Whereas what I'm thinking of is like, oh, we played like Pandemic Legacy, and like one person was like, oh, I'm just not going to cooperate. I'm going to try and like make y'all lose. Right?
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. But it was okay in the sense that like I feel like that was a safe enough space where it's like, oh, we're trying out different ways that that this game can break, and like it was a pretty useful like lesson to talk about like, hey, what assumptions do you have like coming into the game, because they were coming from a space where like they haven't played like cooperative games before, like board games. Like they don't really play a lot of cooperative games, and so they came from a space of like, oh yeah, like I'll make things fun by being competitive, right? By like being like a chaos agent, like that's fun to them. And they had never encountered a situation where like, oh, everyone here wants to cooperate. Yeah.
I was working on a co-op game a couple of years ago, and it was interesting playtesting it with, because it was aimed at a mass market audience, and so I was playtesting it with people in that audience who played some games but weren't really like, they hadn't played many, and it was surprising to me, but then it became not surprising how every time I'd show it to a new group, there would pretty much always be people who were like, I just want to win. How do I win? How do I win? Like I don't want to share the victory. I want to win. And then and trying to explain to them, well, no, this is kind of like we're all on the same team here, working, to this thing. And there was people who were just like, and so then some of them would make their own little like objectives, like, okay, well,
Correct.
I'm gonna have more gold than you, like, or whatever it is, like. And it was just so funny, like this, and I really learned in that process that people kind of who haven't played a lot of modern board games, that the whole mentality around cooperative games just really isn't, like, they're just not aware of it. They don't really have that assumption about what to bring to the table, like you were saying.
Yeah. And I don't think it's like malicious, right? Like
No.
I'm not saying like this person is bad or anything. Like they had assumptions about what board games were coming in, because all they played was like Monopoly, like all very competitive, very take that kind of games, right?
Yeah.
And so they bring that assumption with them into the game. So and you could think of that as like a failing on my part for like not explaining to them properly what the context of the cooperative game is, right? I had just assumed that like, hey, I say that this is a cooperative game, you understand what I mean,
One of my most enjoyable play sessions, you probably know the game Innovation. It's from a little while ago now, and it has a mechanism in the game, the all lose mechanism. So it's a very unusual, like hard to achieve scenario, but if you do it just right, you can trigger essentially a nuclear apocalypse, and it's an all lose, no winner scenario. And so the game gives an outlet to the players, or a player, to I guess it's like, it's malicious but it's intentional in the design, and having that as an outlet for that, like changing course throughout the game to go, you know what, I don't think I can win this game, but I can win in a different way by attempting to trigger this very difficult to achieve scenario. and it's incredibly satisfying to pull it off. And of course, you want to be playing with the right people because you know. But it was a fun scenario. So yeah, games that I think you can in your design you can also build in these kind of release valves for malicious behavior and have it as a constructive aspect of the game as well. Yeah.
All right. So before we wrap up, I'll just do. Kate, do you have anything you'd like to ask Aaron before we?
No, I have little to no experience in RPGs. Actually, I have no experience in RPGs. I know what it means.
Yeah.
That's the extent.
That's all right. And
I
Alannah,
like
was there
collecting
anything you
the
wanted to-
TT. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I like collecting TTRPG books. I very rarely play them. Yeah, I'd like to. I need to find a GM or something. But yeah, my
Well,
recent
we were just
acquisition
finding out
is,
today, Alannah, that
yeah.
it's very easy online. You don't even have to leave your house. You can just do it now.
Yeah. Yeah. I should take the plunge one of these days. One of my recent acquisitions was a game called Space Weirdos by Snarling Badger Games. So it's more of a
very on
yeah.
brand.
It's more of a like a tabletop wargaming, but with
Yes,
TTRPG
it's the skirmish game,
elements.
right?
So,
Yeah.
yeah, which looks like a lot of fun. So hopefully one day that will get onto my table. So
Cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Aaron. This obviously was really enlightening. You talking about all the different things. If you're open to it, I think we'd like to have you on the show in the future sometime, so we can talk about some of the other things that you raised as well in regards to those overlaps between regular, board games and RPGs. All right. So
Thanks for having me.
So welcome. Really enjoy talking to you. As you know, I mean, hey, you're one of my friends. So I enjoy talking to you all the time. But yeah, no, I think your experience, like putting aside that, one of the things that I've appreciated in knowing you. So for context for our people who are viewers, not only Aaron and I are friends, but we both were part of the team who ran a playtesting group in Melbourne called Incubator, along with Carl Lang, who foreshadowing is going to be on our show next week. So we were all organising a monthly playtest group, and so I remember like one of the things I've really appreciated about knowing Aaron as a game designer has been the way that you do kind of deconstruct and then reconstruct the systems and the methods of play and like kind of how the different things work and motivations, and I certainly have learnt a lot from you over the years in terms of that kind of stuff, and I know we've had some pretty interesting lively debates at times around
That's all mutual.
specifics,
we learn from each other. That's why I love like playtesting groups, right? Like we bring each other up. We kind of like are able to share like our perspectives and experience. Yeah.
Well, thank you again. Let me look at my notes to see what I've got to say at this end bit. I'm such a professional. All right, we've done the thank yous. So, and thanks again to Alannah and Kate. It's been wonderful to see you both again.
Always a pleasure.
Like I mentioned, we will be next week, all things going to plan, have Carl Lang on the show. He is a game designer. He's also working with or helped found a studio called Guff Studios here in Australia. So we're going to talk to him a bit about that kind of stuff to do with being a new publisher. And all right, so if you want to join us in chatting about board game manufacturing, board game making, board game anything, head to our Discord, which I will just bring up the link to. So if you head to ltt.ltd/s/discord, you can join our Discord, and we would love to talk to you about board games. Obviously, we have a particular focus from Launch Tabletop in the manufacturing and bringing them to life kind of side of things, but a whole bunch of our team are passionate board gamers as well. So we're just happy to talk about making games, and obviously other people in the Discord are other designers and creators and publishers, and so come along and chat to us. And the Discord is also a great place that if you have any thoughts or ideas for this podcast or live stream, and you want us to talk about a certain topic, or maybe try and get somebody on to interview, then that Discord is the place to tell us, and we'll try and make it happen. Have I forgotten anything? Anyone? I think that's about it. So, all right, we'll just move to the very end. I'll just pull up the screen if I can get my technology to work. All right. So, oh, how did that work?
Hello.
Hello, yeah. There we go. That one should work now. So Materialise is produced by Launch Tabletop. Visit launchtabletop.com to find out more about Launch Lab, our print-on-demand tabletop game platform, and sign up for a free account. And thank you very much for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you.